The Beatles have long been known as one of the greatest rock bands of all time. They have produced love songs like no other and given the world musical gifts of which there are no comparisons. Yet the side of the Beatles that is rarely talked about is the female influences in each member's life that affected the band as a whole. There is a lot of conspiracy regarding the women behind the scenes, and two of the most famous ones embroiled in these are Pattie Boyd and Yoko Ono. The questions regarding their influence on the band and relationship with each other have been haunting fans for decades. How did they change the lives of the band? Were they responsible for the eventual end of the Beatles? Did they get jealous of each other and fight? To understand the answers to these burning questions better, it is necessary to zoom in and focus on how they became linked to the band and what they did to ruin it. Let's begin with Pattie Boyd, a famous English model and photographer that revolutionized the British female look of the era and was sought after by many suitors. Pattie was a unique woman. She was not only gorgeous and assertive but also had a lot of power in the fashion and showbiz industry. Her allure was the reason the lead guitarist of the Beatles, George Harrison, fell in love with her immediately after they met in 1964 when she was only 19. Both of them were driven by their careers at that time, yet found that they could push and motivate each other like no other. This led them to develop a close romantic connection that soon turned serious, and just 2 years into their relationship, they decided to marry each other. Their wedding was a highly celebrated, luxurious affair, and both found great comfort in each other's company. At this time, both of their careers were rising and they were highly occupied, which left them with little time to spend with each other. George was often away on tour with the Beatles since Beatlemania had spread across the world and everyone wanted to see their performance. Boyd was also busy modeling internationally at various different shows and was called by multiple agencies who wanted to feature her. However, despite being away often, they reserved the little moments they had free to ensure they could spend time with each other to keep their relationship alive. An immediate problem in their marriage proved to be the high publicity it received. Since George and Pattie both had devoted fans, they were always caught in a whirlwind of negative attention and criticism. Due to this, George purchased Kinfoss, a house far away from public in Esher, Surrey, so they could have peace and escape the unwanted obsessive focus that was always on them in central London. Pattie moved in soon after, and for a while they had a peaceful home. During this time, Pattie and George were very much in love with each other. They both inspired each other, and Pattie was often a muse for George's creative direction. Many songs of the Beatles were written by George to describe his love for Pattie, including I Need You, If I Needed Someone, and For You Blue. Pattie was also the one who introduced George and the rest of the Beatles to Indian spirituality, which led them to visit the country and hold a concert tour there as well. She also tried LSD for the first time with the band when the couple's dentist spiked their beverages with the drug. Due to this, the band members and she were close to each other, and the band liked her in general. Unfortunately, though, Pattie and George's relationship did not last too long, and she soon became involved in an affair with Eric Clapton, which led to the formation of the famous rock love triangle. Soon after, Pattie and George got a divorce and she married Eric instead. But surprisingly enough, George gave his blessing to their marriage and even attended it to sing a song showing how dedicated he was to her. The same, however, could not be said for Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono was a Japanese multimedia artist who is often hated by the media and fans, being cited as the main reason the Beatles broke up. The reason for this was her relationship with John Lennon that began when he was still married to his first wife, Cynthia Lennon. Yoko first met him in the Indica Gallery in London in 1966, and both were immediately drawn to each other despite their best interests. Soon their relationship began disguised as a professional interest in each other's art. The craziest part of this is that Yoko had come to John after being rejected by the Beatles member Paul McCartney for a song manuscript she needed to give John Cage. The pair had already begun on the wrong foot, and John's involvement with her made things worse. Soon, despite the excuse of it being an artistic interest, their relationship began to exceed many boundaries and became romantic. Yoko often called John at the house he shared with his wife, which angered Cynthia and led her to ask questions which John often deflected or made Yoko look like a desperate opportunist to cover himself. However, he was already writing songs for her, the Beatles' hit Julia being one of the songs he wrote inspired by Yoko. The inevitable finally arrived when Yoko got pregnant and John decided it was time to divorce Cynthia, and they separated. Shockingly, Yoko then had a miscarriage which left her shaken. Soon, John and Yoko were involved in a serious relationship and doing many creative pursuits with each other, one of these including their participation in the BBC documentary about the Rolling Stones along with several other artists. They decided to take their relationship to the next level and got married, going on a honeymoon, and it seemed they were really in love. But soon the red flags began to appear. It began when Yoko co-wrote some songs with John for the Beatles, but instead of giving her credit as a co-writer, he gave it to Paul. This angered her immensely, and soon she became really possessive and controlling over John, often attending the studio sessions of the band where they were making and practicing their music. This agitated the rest of the members, who found her presence unneeded and disturbing, but Yoko's hold was strong and she did not relent. On top of this, Yoko was also responsible for trying to control the creative direction of the band, which was one of the final straws. Paul already did not like Yoko, and her involvement made him increasingly angry. Soon, he felt that nothing was working and announced he was going to quit the band, along with John, who was incredibly frustrated with the way things were turning out. Before anyone knew it, the Beatles had broken up, and for many fans, Yoko was the obvious reason for the divide that had occurred between them. For this, Yoko deserved much negative press and was hated by the public for a long time, despite her complexity as a person. Many people forgot her positive influence on the music of the band, including her songwriting and the singles she inspired, painting her as a villain. And that became the reason why Yoko Ono was so jealous of Pattie Boyd. Despite the fact that both of them were married to members and contributed to the music of the Beatles, Pattie was much liked by both the members and the general public. Even though Pattie cheated on her husband and got involved with another artist while Yoko was loyal to a fault and possessive about the relationship, it was Yoko who was blamed at the end as the reason everything went wrong. Pattie was also respected by the members, and they appreciated the few times she dropped by, while Yoko's presence was felt as suffocating and caused tension between the members, leaving her own husband angry with her on multiple occasions. The members were also actively disrespectful against Yoko, adding salt to the wound. They would walk out when she came to meetings and get frustrated when she joined conversations with John as an excuse. It did not help that she was from a different ethnicity, and the difference made it all the more easier to hate her. Thus, Yoko was jealous and resentful of Pattie, who got the cake and ate it too, while Yoko herself was left with not even the frosting. Both of these women were inspiring for the Beatles and had many songs dedicated to them. It is interesting to wonder what would happen if they did not meet their partners when they did, and how many classics we would miss had they not met the members when they did. Love them or hate them, we can all agree on one thing: without their presence, the band would not have been the same. So, what do you think about the rift between these two? Are you Team Pattie Boyd or Team Yoko Ono? Tell us in the comments below.